Imagine you are standing in a quiet, secluded chateau in the French countryside. The air is still, the hallways are dim, and everything seems perfectly normal. But inside one specific room, the Yellow Room, a violent struggle has just taken place. A woman, Mathilde Stangerson, lies wounded and terrified. A gun has been fired. Yet, when the door is broken down, the room is found to be bolted and locked from the inside. The windows are shut and secure. There are no secret passages, no hidden trapdoors, and no way for an assassin to have vanished into thin air. This is the central enigma of Gaston Leroux's 1907 masterpiece, The Mystery of the Yellow Room. It is a book that helped define an entire genre of detective fiction, the locked room mystery. It's the kind of puzzle that makes you want to grab a pen and paper to map out the floor plan, because the crime itself seems to defy the laws of physics. The story is told through the eyes of Jean St. Clair, a man who finds himself caught up in the investigation led by a young, incredibly intuitive reporter named Joseph Rouletabille. At the center of the chaos is Mathilde Stangerson, a woman who has been attacked in that impossible room, and her fiancé, Robert Darzac, whose behavior is so erratic and suspicious that he quickly becomes the prime suspect. As the investigation begins, we meet the celebrated detective Frederic Larsan. He is a man of great reputation, someone who approaches crime with a cold, clinical logic. He looks at the evidence, the footprints, the bicycle left nearby, the timing of the events, and he builds a damning case against Darzac. To Larsan, the solution is simple. Darzac must have done it. But Rouletabille, the young reporter, isn't satisfied with simple. He doesn't buy the idea that the crime was impossible. He believes the impossibility is an illusion designed to lead investigators away from the truth. While the police and Larsan are busy building their case against Darzac, Rouletabille starts looking at the smaller, more overlooked details. He notices a bullet lodged in the ceiling, a single stray hair, and the strange, unsettling atmosphere surrounding the characters. There's a sense that something is being hidden, not just by the killer, but by the victims themselves. The tension ramps up as the investigation moves beyond the walls of the chateau. Aerial reports of a black phantom moving through the shadows, and a local forest keeper, known as the Green Man, is found murdered. The atmosphere becomes heavy with the feeling that a predator is watching everyone from the periphery. As we move deeper into the plot, the mystery shifts from a question of how to a question of who and why. It becomes clear that Mathilde Stangerson is living under a shadow. She has been acting strangely, meeting people in secret, and she seems paralyzed by a fear that goes beyond the attack in the Yellow Room. It turns out that Mathilde has a secret from her past, a marriage in America that she has tried to bury. This secret is the key to everything, and it's being used as a weapon. The investigation reaches a boiling point during the trial of Robert Darzac. He stands in a courtroom in Versailles, facing the weight of all the circumstantial evidence Larsan has gathered. The case against him seems airtight, but just as the verdict seems inevitable, Rouletabille interrupts the proceedings. He has finally pieced together the mechanics of the impossible crime, and he is ready to tear the illusion apart. Rouletabille's explanation of the crime is a masterclass in deconstructing a magic trick. He reveals that the impossible part of the crime wasn't a trick of escape, but a trick of timing. The assault didn't happen when everyone thought it did. The killer had actually attacked Mathilde earlier in the day. In a state of shock and desperation to keep her secrets hidden, Mathilde had concealed the traces of the attack and locked herself in the Yellow Room. The most severe injury, the one that made the crime seem so immediate and violent, actually happened later that night while she was alone in the locked room. Traumatized and unstable, she fell from her bed and hit her temple on the corner of her bedside table. The locked room wasn't a puzzle of how the killer got out, it was a puzzle of when the killer had actually been there. But the most shocking part of Rouletabille's revelation isn't just how the timing worked, but who the killer actually is. The man everyone thought was the brilliant detective Frederic Larsan is actually a notorious criminal named Jean Roussel, also known as Ballmeyer. Larsan was the ultimate manipulator. He used his deep knowledge of criminal psychology and his understanding of how detectives think to orchestrate a perfect frame-up. He wasn't just solving the crime, he was directing it. His motive was pure, cold-blooded blackmail. Years earlier, he had tricked Mathilde into a marriage in America, and now he had resurfaced to extort her, using her past to destroy her new life and her marriage to Darzac. He wanted to drive her to ruin or death, and he was willing to use Darzac as the perfect scapegoat to ensure his own escape. At the end of the book, a truth is laid bare. Darzac is cleared. The impossible crime is explained as a clever trick of timing and trauma, and the villain is unmasked. But the victory is bittersweet. Mathilde is left to deal with the wreckage of her past, including the revelation that she has a secret son from her previous life, a child who represents the life she tried to leave behind. When we look back at the mystery of the Yellow Room, it's easy to see why it remains such a foundational text. It's one of the first books to really lean into the fair play aspect of detective fiction, where the author provides the reader with all the pieces of the puzzle, even if they are hidden in plain sight. One of the most interesting things to analyze in this book is the conflict between two different ways of thinking. On one side, you have Larsan, who represents a rigid, manipulated version of logic. He uses facts, but he uses them to build a narrative that serves his own ends. He knows how to use evidence to create a false reality. On the other side, you have Rouletabille. He doesn't just look at the facts, he looks at the gaps between the facts. He uses intuition and a holistic view of the situation to see the patterns that Larsan is trying to obscure. It's a battle between the science of deduction and the art of observation. The book also plays heavily with the concept of identity and the double. The plot relies on the idea that people are rarely who they seem to be. Larsan is a man living a double life, Mathilde is a woman hiding a secret identity through her past, and Darzac is a man being forced into the identity of a killer. This theme of the shadow self is what gives the book its psychological weight. The crime in the Yellow Room isn't just a physical event, it's the eruption of a hidden past into the present. There is also a fascinating intersection between science and illusion. The character of Professor Stangerson is a scientist, a man dedicated to the study of matter and physical reality. Yet the crime he witnesses seems to defy everything he knows about the physical world. This creates a wonderful tension. The reader is constantly being pulled between the rational, scientific world of the characters and the seemingly supernatural, impossible nature of the crime itself. In many ways, Leroux is playing with the reader's expectations. He uses the locked room setup to make us think we are reading a ghost story or a tale of the supernatural, only to pull the rug out from under us and reveal a very human, very terrestrial crime of greed and obsession. It's a reminder that the most impossible things are often just the most cleverly disguised truths. The legacy of the mystery of the Yellow Room can be seen in almost every classic mystery that followed. You can see its influence in the works of Agatha Christie, who perfected the art of the psychological puzzle, and in John Dickson Carr, who took the locked room trope to even more fantastical heights. Leroux helped establish the rules of the game, the idea that a mystery is a contract between the author and the reader, a promise that if you are clever enough, you can solve it before the protagonist does. Ultimately, the book is about the weight of the past. It suggests that we can try to lock our secrets in rooms, bolt the doors, and move on to new lives, but the past has a way of finding its way back in. A secret marriage, a hidden child, a former lover. These are the things that create the shadow that eventually haunts the present. The Yellow Room isn't just a physical space, it's a metaphor for the parts of ourselves we try to keep sealed away, only to find that they can be broken into at any time. It's a brilliant, tightly wound piece of storytelling that manages to be both a high-stakes thriller and a complex intellectual puzzle. Even a century after it was written, the mechanics of the Yellow Room still hold up, and the character of Joseph Rouletabille remains a compelling figure. The young man who looked at an impossible situation and refused to believe in magic, choosing instead to believe in the truth.